The North Sea, a place where the sky and water meet in endless gray. A sea that roars and rages, swallowing ships and men without mercy. It is not a battlefield, but many lives are lost here. It is not a prison, but it traps thousands of workers every year. The North Sea is one of the hardest workplaces on Earth. Cold, dark, dangerous. Why? Why do men and women return to this sea of storms, machines, and death? Tonight, we journey into this unforgiving world to discover the secrets behind the hardest workplace known to humankind. This is the North Sea, and this is its story. The North Sea looks quiet on the surface, but beneath its gray waves hides a cold that is deadly, a cold that does not just chill the skin, but strikes deep into the bones, stealing life in minutes. For those who work here, the cold is a constant enemy. It never sleeps. It waits silently for the smallest mistake, the slightest accident. Even in the summer months, the water temperature rarely rises above 15 degrees Celsius, 59 degrees Fahrenheit. But that cold is a thief, swift and merciless. Imagine a worker on an oil rig, standing on a metal platform 30 meters above the sea. The wind is biting cold, cutting through his heavy protective clothing like knives. Suddenly, he slips, maybe from a wet patch, maybe because of exhaustion. He falls. The splash is deafening in his ears. He hits the icy water, shock gripping every muscle. His lungs burn as cold water fills his mouth and nose. The sea seems endless and dark, swallowing him whole. Within minutes, his body begins to betray him. Hypothermia creeps in silently. At first, his teeth chatter uncontrollably. His muscles stiffen, making every movement painful and slow. His fingers and toes lose feeling, turning numb and pale. Time slows. Panic rises. He fights the cold with all his strength, but it steals his warmth, his power, and eventually, his hope. Hypothermia does not just freeze the body, it confuses the mind. Victims often lose their will to survive. They drift into darkness, sometimes with their last thoughts drifting back to home, family, and lost chances. Rescue teams rush to save workers who fall, but the sea plays no favorites. The faster the rescue, the better the chance of survival. Still, many are lost, swallowed by the freezing depths before help can reach them. Fishermen and rig workers tell stories, tales of comrades who vanished without a trace. They say the cold is not just in the water, but in the silence that follows a fall. One fisherman, Thomas, recalls the night his best friend fell overboard during a storm. Despite their desperate efforts, the sea kept him. For days, no sign of him appeared, only the cold waves rolling on endlessly. These stories create a shadow over the North Sea's endless horizons, a reminder that beneath the waves lies a frozen grave. The cold is a silent killer, patient and unforgiving. It does not roar or rage like a storm. It waits, it lures, and when a life slips into its grasp, it takes without mercy. For those who work here, the cold is a constant threat, a frozen enemy that can end a life in moments, no matter how strong or prepared they are. The North Sea can be calm and almost peaceful one moment, then violent and deadly the next. The weather here is like a restless spirit, changing without warning, leaving no time for escape. For workers on oil rigs, fishing boats, and supply ships, storms are the worst enemy. The sky turns dark as if night has fallen in the middle of the day. Winds roar like wild beasts, howling across the endless waves. Rain falls in sheets, sharp and cold, blurring vision and soaking through even the thickest gear. Waves rise higher than tall buildings, sometimes reaching over 20 meters. They crash into rigs with the force of freight trains. Steel beams shake, pipes rattle, and machines groan under the pressure. Imagine being stuck on a floating metal platform as the storm rages. The horizon disappears, swallowed by thick clouds and angry seas. Helicopters that brought workers to the rig are grounded, stranded on land. Rescue boats cannot approach through the monstrous waves. Trapped in this chaos, workers hold on tight. The metal platform creaks and bends with each powerful wave. Every gust threatens to throw them off balance. Every loud crash feels like the sea is trying to rip the rig apart. Storms here often come with no warning. Weather forecasts help, but the sea's mood can shift in minutes. One day might begin with blue skies and calm waters. The next, a wall of wind and rain crashes down, sending men scrambling for shelter. Fishermen know this danger all too well. One night, a small trawler was caught in a sudden storm. The crew fought to keep control, but the waves were too powerful. The boat was thrown against jagged rocks. Only one man survived, clinging to a floating crate for hours until rescued. On rigs, storms force workers to stop their work. Pipelines must be secured. Machines shut down. Workers gather in safe rooms, waiting for the sea's fury to pass. But the fear never leaves. Storms bring power outages, broken equipment, and sudden accidents. A single loose object can become a deadly missile. Workers must stay alert, ready for the next challenge the sea throws at them. During a brutal storm in 2013, a North Sea rig was hit by a wave estimated to be over 25 meters high, a rare but terrifying event called a rogue wave. The wave smashed through safety barriers, flooding parts of the rig and damaging equipment. Workers say the storm sounded like the end of the world. Roaring wind, cracking metal, alarms blaring nonstop. They stayed locked in safety shelters for hours, unable to move or know what damage had been done. After the storm passed, they found devastation, broken pipes, flooded cabins, and shattered windows. But by some miracle, no lives were lost. Storms like this remind everyone that the North Sea is a place where nature still holds power over man. No matter how advanced technology becomes, no matter how strong the rigs are built, the sea storms still test the courage and strength of every worker. For those who brave the North Sea, storms are a constant reminder the sea is never truly under control. It can change in an instant from calm to chaos, from a workplace to a battlefield. The towering oil rigs of the North Sea rise like giants from the water, their steel skeletons cutting harsh silhouettes against the endless gray horizon. To an outsider, they might look like monuments to human strength and technology. But for those who live and work on them, these rigs are more like floating steel tombs, cold, noisy, and dangerously isolated. Life on an oil rig is a test of endurance. Workers live in cramped metal quarters no bigger than a small bedroom, stacked deep inside the giant structure. These rooms are cold, with walls that echo every sound, the hum of machines, footsteps on steel, the distant clang of pipes. The air smells of oil, salt, and metal, a constant reminder that nature and industry exist here side by side in uneasy balance. Work shifts last 12 hours or more, with workers battling fatigue and the ever-present noise. The platform never truly sleeps. Machines roar day and night. Alarms sound suddenly, piercing through the cacophony and sending hearts racing. The isolation is brutal. Days blend into nights under flickering fluorescent lights. The sea surrounds the rig, endless and gray, a cold prison wall that separates workers from their families, their homes, their normal lives. Communication with the outside world is limited. The internet and phone signals are spotty. Workers rely on brief calls during breaks and letters sent weeks in advance. Loneliness creeps in like the cold, invading minds and sapping spirits. But the rig is also a place of constant danger. The memory of past disasters hangs like a dark cloud over every worker. Piper Alpha, the deadliest offshore disaster in history, happened in 1988. A sudden gas explosion set the rig ablaze, killing 167 men in minutes. Survivors describe the horror: fireball bursts, metal melting, screams swallowed by roaring flames. The sea beneath was freezing cold. Many who jumped or were thrown into the water didn't survive the shock or the icy grip of hypothermia. That tragedy changed offshore safety forever. Yet the fear remains. Every day, workers train for emergencies, fire drills, gas leak protocols, evacuation procedures. But the sea never forgets. Neither do those who work on it. The machinery itself is a threat. Giant pumps, spinning turbines, and high-pressure pipelines can turn deadly with a single fault. Injuries from falling objects, crushed limbs, and burns are common. Safety equipment is essential but heavy and restrictive. Workers wear thick protective suits, helmets, and harnesses, but these don't protect from the cold or the fatigue. Food is rationed and basic. Sleep is broken. The cramped living quarters offer little comfort. Some workers say the rig feels like a cage, a floating graveyard if disaster strikes. But for many, it is also a place of pride, a job that pays well, but demands everything. They come back again and again, knowing the risks but drawn by the promise of wages, adventure, and the unspoken bond of surviving the sea's fury together. At night, the rig is silent except for the machines and the wind. Shadows stretch long across the metal decks. Every creak and groan feels louder. Some workers say the rig feels alive, a cold, unfeeling beast that watches and waits. They whisper of strange sounds, sudden cold spots, and fleeting figures seen in the fog. The sea may be the true ruler here, but the rig is its fortress, a place where men challenge nature and risk becoming its prisoners forever. The oil rigs and platforms in the North Sea are marvels of engineering, giant machines working together to pull oil and gas from deep beneath the seabed. But these machines are also cold killers. They don't have feelings, mercy, or forgiveness. They simply follow the laws of physics, and sometimes those laws spell disaster for the workers who operate or repair them. Every day on a rig, men and women walk a dangerous line. Around them spin huge drills that dig through solid rock. Powerful pumps push millions of liters of liquid through pipes. Heavy cranes lift tons of equipment, swinging metal like deadly pendulums. All these machines must be handled with care because one wrong move can be fatal. The noise is relentless. Engines roar, valves hiss, alarms scream. It is impossible to hear a single voice clearly. Workers rely on hand signals, shouted orders, and trained routines to keep safe. But fatigue and stress make mistakes common. In the shadows of these giant machines lurk countless dangers: moving gears, spinning shafts, pressurized pipes, and electrical currents that can kill instantly. Crushing injuries are the most common cause of death on rigs. Fingers, hands, even entire limbs can be caught between moving parts in seconds. Workers sometimes lose more than just their limbs. Some lose their lives before help can arrive. One rig worker, John, survived a horrific accident where a heavy valve slammed shut on his arm. He says he still feels the machine's cold grip in his nightmares. The pain was unbearable, but he was lucky. Others are not. Burns from hot pipes and chemicals are another constant risk. The oil being extracted is often under high pressure and temperature. A sudden leak or rupture can send scalding oil or gas spraying across the platform, igniting fires that spread in seconds. Electric shocks happen too, especially during storms when water and electricity mix dangerously. One wrong touch, and a worker's body becomes a conductor for deadly currents. Maintenance work is especially dangerous. Workers must climb tall towers, work in cramped spaces, and operate heavy tools while balancing on slippery surfaces. One slip, one misstep, and the fall can be fatal. Machines don't care about human error. They operate with cold precision. Alarms blare constantly, some false, many real. Workers live in a state of constant tension, knowing that the next alarm could mean disaster. Many rig workers develop what they call machine fear. a deep respect mixed with dread for the equipment they operate. They know the machines can kill, but they must also trust them to survive. Despite safety protocols, accidents still happen. Investigations often find human error combined with mechanical failure. Sometimes the machines wear down after years of use, making failures more likely. In 2011, a worker died on a North Sea rig after being caught in a rotating drum. The investigation showed that safety guards were missing or faulty. The tragedy highlighted how small lapses in safety can lead to death. The rig's metal bones are unforgiving. They hold no pity for broken bodies or shattered lives. For workers, every shift is a battle, not just with the sea, but with the very machines that keep the rig alive. Water surrounds the North Sea rigs and ships on all sides. It is their life source and also their deadliest enemy. Drowning is one of the most feared ways to die here, but it is not always loud or dramatic. Many drown quietly, swallowed by the sea without a sound. A fall from a platform into the cold water below is terrifying. Even the strongest swimmer can be helpless in the icy grip of the sea. The water temperature rarely rises above 15 degrees Celsius, 59 degrees Fahrenheit, often much colder. When a worker hits the water, the shock is immediate. The cold stuns the body, making it hard to breathe or move. Many don't even get a chance to call for help. Currents beneath the surface pull unpredictably, sometimes dragging a person away from safety or rescue boats. Hidden rocks and jagged steel beneath the water's surface add to the danger. One story tells of a worker who fell during a storm and was swept under the rig. His friends watched in horror as he disappeared from view, swallowed by the dark water. Despite hours of searching, no trace was found. The silence underwater is eerie. No sounds can travel far beneath the waves. Panic and cries fade quickly, leaving only the deep, cold darkness. Rescue efforts are difficult. Helicopters can lower rescue swimmers, but high winds and rough seas often block access. Even life jackets can fail if the wearer becomes unconscious or trapped. Many workers who fall into the sea never come back. Their bodies are carried away by currents, lost in the vast depths. Hypothermia works quickly. Within minutes, the body cools, muscles stiffen, and movement slows. The mind clouds, dreams fade, and finally, unconsciousness takes over. Some survivors speak of the strange calm before darkness, how the cold steels their will to fight. Families of lost workers live with the unknown. No bodies to bury, no graves by the sea, only memories and empty spaces at the dinner table. Drowning in the North Sea is a quiet death. It steals lives without sound or warning. The sea takes, but never gives back. The North Sea is not only a physical challenge, it is a battle for the mind. For workers who spend weeks at a time isolated on rigs or boats, the psychological toll can be as dangerous as the storms or freezing water. The endless gray horizon, the ceaseless noise, the crushing loneliness, all combine into a pressure cooker of stress and fear. Isolation here is absolute. Surrounded by miles of cold, empty sea, workers can feel trapped in a cage with no escape. Days and nights blur together, time loses meaning, and the mind starts to fray. Anxiety gnaws at the edges of their thoughts. Sleep becomes broken by nightmares of falling into the sea or being crushed by heavy machinery. The silence between the noise feels loud, too loud, amplifying every worry. Depression settles in quietly, but firmly. Some workers describe feeling numb, disconnected from the world and from themselves. The bright lights of the rig become harsh, the noise unbearable. Paranoia can take root. Some swear they hear whispers in the wind or sea shapes moving in the fog. Others feel watched by unseen eyes, haunted by the ghosts of past accidents and lost colleagues. One rig worker, Mark, described the mental strain during a brutal winter shift. "The cold gets into your head," he said. It's like the sea isn't just outside, but inside you, dragging you down, making you doubt everything. The pressure to stay alert and safe is constant. One mistake could be fatal, not just for oneself, but for the entire crew. Add to this the fear of storms, the weight of dangerous machinery, and the knowledge of lives lost at sea, and the mental burden becomes crushing. Suicide rates among offshore workers are higher than average. The harsh conditions and isolation, combined with long periods away from family, can push some to the edge. Support is limited. Mental health services on rigs are scarce, and the culture often discourages showing weakness. Many suffer in silence, hiding their struggles behind forced smiles and hard work. But the mind, like the sea, can break without warning. Some workers report episodes of panic attacks, heart racing, chest tight, breath short, trapped on a metal platform surrounded by the dark, endless water. Others describe dissociation, feeling as if they are outside their body, watching themselves in a nightmare they cannot escape. There are stories of workers walking into dangerous areas, forgetting protocols, or losing focus, risking lives because their minds have wandered into darkness. The sea demands not only physical strength, but mental resilience. For many, the hardest battle is the one inside their own heads. Every shift on the North Sea rigs or vessels feels like a countdown, a race against time and fate. The final hour is the moment when danger becomes deadly. It can come from many sources: a sudden storm, a machinery failure, a slip or fall, or a medical emergency far from help. For workers here, every second counts. One rig worker, Sarah, recalls a terrifying incident when a critical pipe burst during a routine check. The blast sent scalding gas hissing through the air. Alarms screamed. The crew scrambled to shut down the leak. In that final hour, seconds felt like minutes. Every decision mattered. Panic was deadly. The sea outside churned violently, waves crashing against the platform, rattling the steel bones. Rescue helicopters circled, waiting for a chance to land. Sarah remembers the feeling of cold sweat, the pounding heartbeat, and the silent prayers for safety. Others faced their final hour in silence, lost overboard during a storm, trapped in flooding compartments, or caught in fire. The cold water pulls quickly, the sea claiming its victims without mercy. One story tells of a young fisherman who slipped overboard near the coast during a foggy night. The crew called for help, but the thick fog and high waves slowed rescue efforts. After an hour, the sea had taken him. The final hour often comes alone and unexpected. Rescue teams train endlessly to respond fast and safely. They battle the elements, wind, waves, rain, to save lives. Still, many never make it back. Workers know the risks, but face the sea every day with courage. The final hour is a grim reminder: the North Sea is unforgiving, and sometimes fate wins. The North Sea is a place of endless stories, of strength and fear, of life and death. It holds memories deep beneath its cold, gray waves. For those who have worked its waters, the sea is more than just a workplace. It is a living, breathing force, sometimes a friend, often a foe. It remembers every storm that shattered steel and hope. It remembers every life lost in silence or in fire. It remembers the bravery of men and women who faced its dangers without fear. The sea does not forget, and neither should we. As the waves roll on, so do the stories, whispers of the past carried on the wind, warnings for the future. Why is the North Sea still one of the hardest workplaces? Because it is a place where nature tests human limits, where courage meets danger every day. The sea demands respect. The sea demands strength. But most of all, the sea demands that we remember